serious. Movie theater employees slash managers of Reddit, do you care if people smuggle in their own snacks? If so, how do you handle it? And what was the weirdest thing you caught someone smuggling? When I was ripping tickets one day, this old man and his grandson came in. Right as they were passing me, the little kid tripped, and some snacks and pop fell out of his jacket. The old man looked at me with a horrified look on his face, and I just laughed and told him I won't say anything if he doesn't. Managed a Regal theater for 12 years. Do not care if you smuggle in snacks, so long as you throw them away after the show, and not toss them in the floor. When people were caught, I would again just ask that they throw it away after, and brush it off like no big deal. Someone smuggling in a 6-pack of Coors Light bottles on Valentine's Day to meet someone they had met on the internet. Yes, they got caught. The man got arrested because he had warrants out, and yes, I got to keep the beer. You catch the baddie, you get the booze. Who would have claimed it anyway? Honestly, if you make it past all of the workers, we don't care. Just throw it out yourself. Our ushers hate having to pick up all the garbage people leave behind, especially when you have to walk by a bunch of garbage cans on your way. Just pick up after yourself, for God's sake. I don't know how people can just leave rubbish somewhere and think it's okay. Just because the theater has cleaners, it doesn't mean you should throw things on the floor. Have some respect. One time, I was hungover and accidentally left a nacho tray on the floor and left the theater without throwing it away. At a time when I was at the theater every week, I felt awful when I realized it 4 hours later, for obvious reasons. Went back the next week, apologized for leaving it on the ground, and the guy behind the counter said, "Don't worry about it, you looked like a zombie leaving. At least you felt bad about it." So I'll say it's not always lack of caring, but could easily be an accident. But there is way too much trash for everyone to be forgetful for sure. Hey there dear watcher slash listener. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching this video. If you're enjoying what I'm doing here and wanna see more like this, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel grow a lot, and I'm hoping to do this more. Thank you. Now back to the video. Somebody brought in a coffee and apologized for having outside drinks. I said point blank, I don't get paid enough to care. By far the strangest thing I have ever found when cleaning, besides diapers, condoms, etc., was a bag of moss. Moss. I thought it was weed at first. Nope. Straight up a sandwich baggie full of moss. Edit. To add to this, the only time I've cared about food slash drinks was when some dude was taking popcorn bags and drink cups out of the trash and getting refills. It's a health code issue, and I find disgusting. That bag of moss was probably some poor little kid's pet, and they lost their best friend in the theater. More likely a high schooler trying to sell it to gullible freshmen as weed. Once, a friend and I smuggled about a dozen of those little Jack Daniels coolers into an 11 PM showing of Toy Story. The theater was mostly empty, as you'd imagine, and we sat at the very back in a row all by ourselves. We watched the movie and got a little unk, carefully placing the empty bottles at our feet, intending to smuggle them back out, or at least put them in the trash, if we didn't give a ref by the end of the movie. About halfway into the movie, my buddy accidentally kicked the row of empty bottles and they all started rolling down the theater under all the empty seats. They'd stop here and there, hung up on a chair leg or something, then continue on their journey to the screen, each making the kind of music only rolling empty glass bottles can make. This went on for the next few minutes. Each time we were sure they were done, we'd hear the gentle tinkling sound of those bottles continuing on their pilgrimage after a brief rest. We left the theater with the movie half over, trying desperately not to burst out laughing and blowing our cover. I'm pretty sure our cover was blown immediately after the bottles were kicked though. Not as funny as yours, but one time we snuck in a bottle of vodka and a liter of soda water. We set up in the back and pull our cups out. My friend opens the soda water and it explodes everywhere with a big pop. Thankfully it was just soda water and the theater was mostly empty, so we moved to drier seats cracking up. I also have a great story. I was standing in the projection booth with another manager and employee, waiting to start a film, back when managers had to start every single film, and I happened to look down into the theater and see a dude with his dick out and a woman giving him a full-on BJ. The lights were fully on and the previews hadn't even started. That's not even the worst part. The movie they were watching? The Smurfs. And there were kids sitting 2 rows up from them, and families all throughout the theater. We went down and talked to them, and they ran. Most fed up thing I've ever seen, honestly. I worked at a theater around 1999/2000. Outside food and drink weren't allowed, but so long as I didn't see it, I couldn't stop it. I didn't care if people smuggled food in. Everyone does it, myself included. Most people know the deal is a customer has to pretend to hide it, and the theater staff pretend not to notice. The only time I remember calling someone out was when a guy tried to walk into the theater holding a bag of food from Sklotsky's. He wasn't trying to hide it in any way. When I tore his ticket I told him, "Hey man, outside food and drink aren't allowed, so you can't bring that in the theater." He got really self-righteous and argued with me about it. He thought he had a foolproof argument that I wouldn't be able to counter and I'd have to let him bring his food in. He laid bare all of the reasons I couldn't, in good conscience, keep him from bringing his food into the theater. After considering all of his points, I countered with, "Hey man, outside food and drink aren't allowed, so you can't bring that in the theater." At his wit's end, he stood in front of me and angrily ate the entire sandwich as fast as he could. He was proving a point. This wasn't just about a sandwich. It was about injustice? I'm still not sure what this angry nerd was so upset about. He made eye contact and breathed heavily, seething with rage, while he angrily ate a sandwich that he in no way enjoyed. Once it was all over, he walked away proud of himself for taking a stand against a teenage boy who makes minimum wage. You know, an authority figure. Pretty much, I was making just a bit over minimum wage when I worked at a theater. I wasn't about to give you anything free when I did concessions because cups and candy were inventoried at the end of every shift, but I wasn't about to stop you from bringing anything in. What's that guy in a wheelchair? You keep bringing in the same extra large cup every single week and finish your drink before the previews finish, then ask for free refills on it. Nothing is disappearing from my inventoried items, so it sounds good to me. You don't have to Mission Impossible hide whatever you're bringing in. Just give the employees half an ounce of deniability in case someone a few rungs up the totem pole cares. Yeah, apparently tracking inventory of trays and cups is the most important part of running a theater. I worked at a Regal cinema for a few days. We had to stay late one night, like 2 hours after close, to find the missing sleeve of cups. If a customer wanted a refill on a drink, popcorn, or nachos, that was no problem. But if we were short a cup, tray, or popcorn bucket, it was all hands on deck. Once had a couple sneak in an entire wine bottle and glasses, which they left behind afterwards. That was actually pretty bad, because if it was discovered, the theater could have lost their liquor license, and since it was a small independently owned cinema, alcohol sales basically kept them afloat. I used to work at the concession stand at a movie theater. Large popcorns got free refills. It was pretty worthless because it meant either getting up mid-movie for a refill or getting popcorn to bring to your car, so most people never took advantage of it. Sometimes though I would see someone come in and pull out a bag from their pocket. They had clearly saved a popcorn bag from a previous trip to the movies. I sure as hell didn't care enough to accuse them of anything. If they want to eat out of a bag with several day-old butter crusted to the side, then I'm not going to be the one to stop them. I require my kids to bring me home the movie popcorn refill when they go to the movies without me. I worked at a small movie theater in high school and on breaks from college. We were paid barely minimum wage and really didn't care about outside food as long as you weren't obvious with it. Walking in with a coffee from the shop next door. Cool. We don't sell coffee, so it doesn't affect us at all. The absolute weirdest was the person who tried to smuggle soup in. I mean, who casually eats soup while watching a movie. The soup ended up leaking in her purse, and I got screamed out like it was my fault since she wanted soup and we didn't sell soup. OMG, I have the best story for this. I was working a shift a few years ago. It was some popular Marvel movie, can't remember what, and there was this woman who looked pregnant. Her boyfriend ordered only drinks with no food, which isn't too uncommon, and they went it. I went in to do the walkthrough once the movie began, and the woman no longer looked pregnant, and they had, I kid you not, a bucket of effing fried chicken. I couldn't hold my laughter in, and ended up just power walking out as fast as I could, and nearly died laughing. Told my manager, who was very chill, and he talked to them. They did not get kicked out. Was a great night.